Okay, I'm going to get started in this next parable. This parable can be found in Luke 18. I had something in my Bible. It can be found in Luke 18 from verse 9 to verse 14. Okay, it's the parable of the Pharisee and the publican. And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. Two men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus within himself: God, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalteth himself is abased, and everyone that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Okay, and verse 9, this is what it says again. And he spake this parable unto certain which trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. So this parable was meant for those. When Jesus spoke this parable, it was meant for those who were self-assured. In my opinion, he spoke to those who were arrogant, self-assured. They were really conceited and they were just self-assured. They trusted in themselves and not God. And this is the parable that he spoke. So, two men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. The Pharisees were really strict Jews, and they were on their P's and Q's. They crossed all their T's, they dotted all their I's. They knew all the law. They prayed and they were real strict religious Jews. The Sadducees and the Pharisees, they were both strict. Okay, this is verse 11. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus within himself: God, I thank thee that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. So he had the nerve in his mind in prayer to say, I thank you that I'm not as other men like this and like that. He's naming all the sins and all the sinners and stuff, or even as this man next to me. Yeah. I fast twice a week. He's still speaking in prayer. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. So he's self-righteous, in other words. Like he thinks that because he does all these things he thinks that because he does all these things that he's gonna that he's justified, that he's righteous, which is not so. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. So you see the difference between the sinner, the publican, and the Pharisee. I'm gonna read that again because I like that. And the publican, standing afar off, would not lift up so much as his eyes unto heaven, but smote upon his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. Yeah, it's plain to see that because he's a sinner, he's humble. I have a cousin that he's been in and out of prison most of his life. He was living on the streets when he was about 15 or so, and he's a professional. Well, anyway, I'm I'm not going to give any more details, but he and him and everyone like him, they've done so much wrong, in and out of prison, stealing from people, breaking into people's houses, selling drugs. I could think of other things that he's done. And I bet you anything he's the last person to judge people, because he's seen so much, he's done so much. You were to go up to him and confide in him, not knowing what kind of person he is, just talk to him and say, man, I've done so much and this and that. He wouldn't even judge you. He wouldn't even judge you for nothing. Yeah, and he gave his life to Jesus too. He wouldn't judge you because he has no room to judge you. I mean, he's not one to talk at all. And it's funny because it fits in. I can see my cousin in the publican's place, and some heady, high-minded, righteous, religious official praying in the other person's place, in the Pharisee's place. So the point of this story, of this parable, is that those who humble themselves will be exalted, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled. Let's look at the last verse. I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone that exalteth himself shall be abased. Abased means to be humbled. And he that humbleth himself shall be exalted. Just like I made a video called Highs and Lows. It's just like I was saying, the highs and lows. And it's just like Jesus said, if you seek to be the leader of anything, first seek to be the servant of all. First seek to be the lowest of all. Something like that. Amen, amen. I thought I had more to go on this parable. I kind of didn't want it to end because I like the parable. Yeah, anyway, that's it. Okay, thanks for listening.